I 100% encourage you guys to make OCs and characters and self inserts and everything for the world of Cluster. I want you guys to find a region that you want to live in. I want you guys to be like, oh, I'm a person from the Glazed Canyons, and you wear Glazed Canyons clothes, and you have your own story. I want everyone to feel like they have a story that they can tell. I want to create a world. That is my main goal. You know, I do VTubering for fun and that sort of fun stuff, and it's great to talk to people who are as enthusiastic about world building and characters and that sort of stuff like me. But my main focus is on telling a story, Moss's story. Uh, I wouldn't say that. I definitely want to say streamer Moss does not equal lore Moss, because I would have to act way differently. I'm using her as my main persona because I want to be a good person like she is, like how I imagine her. Um and I'm really excited. I would love to do a solo campaign on it. I usually DM. Yes, that is something I considered. Making Cluster a actual D&D world. Um I because I questioned that. I'd like to no ad. Oh, there's an ad. Ooh! I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. Tell me when you're back. Tell me when the ad is over. 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 You back? Okay. Are you back, Genesis? Ads on. Yippee! I'm so sorry. I have ads on like minimum, like very short and very unfrequently. Okay. I what was I talking about? I forgot what you're going to talk about. I forgot what I was good. What was I talking about? Moss lore, world building. Just don't want to miss the story. Oh yeah. Because I thought about Dungeons and Dragons. Did you know Cluster has its own form of magic system? It is not your usual ooh magic ooh. It has its own thing that you can also take character inspiration from. Artsy, hi. Uh the idea for my magic system came from the fact that I hate reading D&D descriptions. Because it's always in long sentence structured, and I like bullet points. I like simple things that tell me exactly what I need to know. Hi, I'm doing good. I'm talking about Moss lore. Um, and I, your ass cannot read. I can read. I just don't have the attention span. ADHD is a curse for me when it comes to writing and literature. But essentially, I like bullet points. I can't read D&D spells well. I avoid being a magic user because it's complicated. And I thought, okay, how do I like when do I like magic in video games, for example? And I realized let me delete that. I realized the one system that I really like, the one system I really like. I forgot the name of it. I forgot the name. I forgot. Skill trees! Skill trees! Skill trees! It's skill trees. I like skill trees a lot. Skill trees are amazing. I fucking love skill trees because skill trees, you can go through the entire tree and figure out what you like. Skill trees are amazing! I love skill trees. And I thought about skill trees, right? I thought about it. I was like, how do you translate that to a magic system? And how do you, like, visualize that in, like, a actual, like, world building? Right? Because you could, like, say, oh yeah, magic exists and it is based of a skill tree, but how do you depict that? Well, my dear travelers, I introduce you to threads. And I'm gonna put on some music for this. Copyright free D&D music. There you go. Let me. So, can I tell you about... Oh, I'm so happy I get to talk about this! Alright. Let me stand behind my table and let me explain it, okay? Some of the things I will read of my page, okay? And if you have questions, please ask me. I love to answer these questions. This has turned into a lore stream. I will explain to you now what threads are. Alright? So, dear traveler, listen up carefully. I'm gonna tell you the general magic system of Cluster and my lore. Threads. Threads are the embodiment of arcane magic inside of every single creature. Everyone has a core thread, but they can choose to expand it through threading or weaving it into a bigger one. If such core thread would be cut or destroyed, the magical ability inside of a person will permanently stop until a new thread has been inserted through threading. Only a core thread can be replaced with another core thread. Essentially, your magic is a thin little string. It sits in the back of your head and can be pulled out from the back of your neck with a spell. That spell is only allowed by special people to be used. It is not harmful in any capacity as long as you handle your thread carefully. So, energy magic pulses through the thread, and that allows you to cast magic. There's different types of threads that come in various different colors. They have different abilities. They are based on elements, they're based on emotions, they're based on changes in your environment, everything. And everyone is born with a different type of thread. I'm sorry, your internet is breaking. Sounds terrifying. If you want, is the thread visible or is it visible to other thread users? As soon as the thread is pulled out, it is visible. It is like a thin piece of hair that glows a certain color. But as you have noticed, maybe, I mentioned threading or weaving. Those are two ways to make your magic, aka your thread, stronger. Threading is the process of adding a completely new thread to someone's body. This thread can have completely new property to it and attached in various ways. Depending on how the stitch and the threading is done, it gives the host various different abilities. For example, let's say your core thread, right? It is a fire thread. You were born with fire abilities. You can go to a person if you get a permit or illegally, and you can say, could I have, I don't know, a earth thread, right? Give me earth abilities. So they attach the both threads together, skill tree, you know, and suddenly you can mix both of those magics together. That is the idea of the skill tree. Threads connect into each other and become stronger. There's also the process of weaving. Lava magic, molten. Exactly. So now you can fucking make lava magic and kill people. You shouldn't. You really shouldn't. But there's also weaving. Weaving is just calling the process of training a already existing thread to become bigger and more stable. There are many ways you can weave a thread naturally, but the city of Novalis, the tech city, has been thinking about artificial weaving. Basically, you train, your thread becomes bigger. That is called weaving. There's adding a completely new one, and then there's the ones that you already have, make bigger. And there's something that I mentioned a few sentences before, that is stitching. Stitching is the way and pattern how the thread has been threaded and attached. For some, it's an art form, and the way they express their creativity, actually. The pattern of the stitch determines the way the magic flows through it and projects out, and it changes the way the magic behaves. There are people who specialize in very specific stitch styles. So, for example, you can go to a person who has a very specific stitch style, and they stitch a earth thread to your fire thread, and that stitch allows you to make fire rocks instead of lava. For example, if you think two people who have the same thread could have different stitching and due to that different abilities. Treat it as like getting a tattoo that gives you magic. It's very cool. There are people who illegally do that. There's some that do it legally. There's a whole underground mafia thing going on about threads because they're so valuable. And that's how magic works. There are many different aspects that come to having a thread, including the fact that threads can break. They are not immune to breaking. They are not immune from being detached from their host. And that's called severing. Severing is the process where the previously newly added thread gets carefully removed from the original core thread. It does risk snapping and destroying the original core thread. There's a risk to tampering with magic. And someone can get a quote-unquote snapped thread. It's when it breaks, it dissipates into nothingness, and you lose that thread. By the way, if I'm going too fast or if you have any questions, please just ask. I like talking about this stuff. And a person with a snapped thread is considered snapped. A person who knotted or snapped their thread during the threading process is called a snap person, and there's something that is very important to Moss's lore. That is knotted threads. If a thread knots, there's a chance, if it's not removed in time, that this thread will cause the person to burn out. Now, what does burning out mean? Burning out is the name of the process where a person eventually bursts from magic not being able to flow properly through the magic thread, and they burn to death from wild magic. It is a devastating process of the death of the person due to their magic being fucked with. And it has cost people lives. It is a thing that people are trying to prevent from happening, and it can happen that a kid can be born with such knotted thread. An infant that was born with a knotted thread is called a comet child. Is everyone born with a thread? Everyone is born with a thread. Every single living creature has a thread. Monsters have threads. Different races have threads. Certain plants, bugs, everything has threats. People say that, very spiritual people say in Cluster, that even water itself, riverbeds, they even have threats. They're just so fine that the common cannot see it. There's something called a comet child. It's when an infant was born with a knotted thread. Due to a magical property not being able to flow through smoothly the thread, the energy builds up. When the magic builds up too much and then bursts out of emotional reasons or age, the magic will distribute wildly through the body, and the child will burn out and die. Children with this condition normally live up to 5 to 10 years. There are homes for comet children where they're made sure that the burning out process doesn't hurt anyone and that they can live a happy life. There's a motorcycle. They can live a happy life until they do eventually burn out. The thread cannot be removed or replaced because of its magical instability. Now, that can happen, right? And every 50th, how do you say it? 50 kid that gets born has a knotted thread, and it's a very, very, sad process. But if you caught up, or if you noticed in the lore video, Moss has a condition. Moss has a knotted thread. But she's 19. She hasn't burned out yet. And she's one of the only ones who hasn't burned out yet. She cannot use magic, unlike anyone else. And she doesn't understand why. It is her own magical disability, and it is something she learned to live with. But there's a lot more to it secretly. And that's the general sum up of Moss lore. There's a lot more details that I can tell you about, for example, the spell that they use to pull threads, etc., etc. and whatnot. I've written down a lot, but there's a lot more to come. I hope you guys will understand what the lore is, or how the magic works. It's a little bit weird, I know. I could read you out what the pull thread spell does. Do specific thread pop up in specific religions, or is it random? You brought up an amazing question! I'm so happy that someone is talking about this. So, religion! Fun thing! Yippee! There is the concept of religion in this world. However, it's not religion of they have their own gods. There's something called a constant. You may have heard it in the lore video too. It was mentioned once. No one has noticed it, but I'm pointing it now. There's something called the constants. They're considered the quote-unquote gods, but they're mortal gods. So, a constant is a person that ascended after death to represent a concept or idea. They represent it by executing regular actions to keep up the balance of their specific concept. They are strictly not allowed to connect with mortals after their original passing. Essentially, they... Imagine you were a person that died. You were really, really good at fucking... I don't know, you were... fucking, yeah. You were really, really good at... justice. Bringing justice to people. That was the one thing you were really good at. and there's out there, once you die, that say, hey, you should be the representative for that, and teach and guide people justice. So if they agree to become a constant of justice, they supervise or look over the earth, or in this case, cluster, and say, this is how justice should be done. This is how it goes. This is how you can execute it, but in subtle ways. And there are regions, for example, Pineheart, that follow a more specific or more constants that follow their beliefs. Pineheart is a merchant city. Of course, they're gonna be more worshipping people, for example, or constants like wealth, or gold, or rich, or that sort of stuff. Pineheart, Pine, was a person who was the founder of that city and that region, and she... hi, mommy! Haikama Asume! Pine was a forest dweller who took down people who wanted to take down the forest, and she watched people travel through her forest and looked after them. That was her entire thing, and after she passed, she became the constant of safe travels. She looks after you, that you don't have any problems when you travel, that you don't get, like, fucking, I don't know, thieves or something. And there are shrines for Pine in the wild area where just people travel through, in the forests, etc., to thank her for her service. So religion is a thing. Threats, specifically, I wouldn't say. Threats do not play by any specific rules. They are magic by itself. They do not follow the rules of the constants. So, if you fucking, I don't know, live in a place that is like hot and lava-y, like the Glazed Canyons, you can get an ice thread. You can get born with it. There's no law to it. But the constants are like the religion of this world. And there's like beliefs of something of the equivalent of heaven, but it's called the Everlight. The Everlight is a place or a concept or memory or person that brings you internal peace and joy. That is what being said is the Everlight. It can be physical or imaginary. Everyone has their own Everlight. Not people know of this, or believe in the Everlight, but some people will decide to make it their life's purpose to figure out what or who is their Everlight. Is there a max number of threads or core threads? Everyone has one single core thread, and every other thread that you would attach is attached throughout the core thread. That means you only can have one single core thread, and legally, there is a limit with how many threads you can have. However, there are people out there who look to gain more power, and that means gaining more threads. The healthy amount, 3. The unhealthy amount, more. Do the elites have special threads or magic? Not necessarily. They were just very special in the sense of strong. They learned... People can choose to use their threads. It is not important for a person to become the best magic user. They can still just be a person, but people who want to, for example, become adventurers, they happen to train their threads. Was he responded? Nope. And the elite just were a group of people that got together. They were really good at what they were doing, and they decided to keep people safe. For example, the representative, the elite of the Glaze Canyons. He is a vampire man. He is very cool. He's a big buff vampire man who hates the sun but lives in the sunniest fucking place. And he essentially molds metal and rocks. That's his entire thing, metal. So yeah. Is the core thread the most powerful one? Like, would someone in with an ice core in the 5 be better at ice magic? Yeah. Any magic that is your core thread, the magic originates in the core thread, right? That means the magic in the core thread pulses throughout the other threads. It has to be like a conductor. Meaning, the more threads you have, the weaker the newer ones will be because they won't get as much magic. They don't distribute as much magic as the core thread. So the core thread will always technically be stronger, but you can also consider stronger threads that utilize or being utilized better. People use their magic in everyday to-day life, and not just to fight creatures. It is still a city where people just live. Is there a big werewolf man in Cluster? A big werewolf man? I did actually have a character. I did actually have a werewolf character, yes. But he's more... He used to be Moss's rival. I haven't scrapped him, but I didn't work on him so far. I got that wrist thread, oh my god. He is one of the guards at Pineheart. And he always got called guard dog for that. Or like puppy, because people are making fun of him, because he's quite temperamental. He's very... He wants to be the best guard, but he just kind of like is too serious about it, and because of that he makes other people's lives a lot harder, and he eventually gets fired from his job due to how stubborn he is, and that makes him very sad, and he goes to Moss and he's like, Moss, and Moss is like, duh, everyone doesn't like you really, you can work on it though. You were kind of a dick because you're like enforced your power so much, so... Do the gods change periodically? I forgot what it's called, but the god of justice, when someone has died with a strong sense of justice and yet another person dies and another comes to justice. Yeah. As I mentioned before, constants, which are the gods, they don't get replaced if another person does better justice. However, gods can die, and fate does play kind of a role. When a constant dies, most of the time the person who will replace them dies also at the same time, so they get replaced immediately. It's kind of a weird coincidence thing. It's just how the world works. But gods can die. They can only die in a very specific way, but they do have a habit about being very competitive about what is the most important concept and who's more important than others. They're kind of stuck up. I'll give them that, because like they consider themselves higher than mortals. They're not allowed to talk to mortals. They're not allowed to interact with mortals. They just set the ground rules for the mortals of how something should go. And that sometimes gives some of them an ego, especially the ones with the higher power. If they die in their very specific way, they do get replaced. But I haven't mentioned this yet, because this is very deep Moss lore in this case. But there's something that goes higher than the gods. Something that is higher than a constant. That is a balance. Balances are higher in the hierarchy of mortals. They're like super duper gods. Sure, balance are called balance because, you know, they are the essential key points of how humanity comes to be. And they have counterparts to balance themselves out. The counterparts are life and death, order and chaos, space and time, and love and torment. Every other constant gets chosen by the balance. But balances, when they die, they don't get, like, replaced like your common constant. A constant gets replaced by any mortal that died, by any human that died. The balance, they get born. They get born in a very special place. I can't say what the name is of that place, but they get born. And they get taught how to be their balance. And they age really quick. And they do play a very important role in the lore. Each of the different balance have a color representing them. I got an appointment with the constant getting my ass beat. I hope your appointment goes good. Every balance has a color. Life is gold. Life is yellow. Death is purple. Order is blue. Chaos is red. Space is white. Time is gold. Love is pink, and torment is green. And, fun fact, Dragonborns. They represent and are descendants of balance, because balance are dragons. I'm not a white and Mexican native, JK, bruh. But balance are not just gods or some sort of concept. They are dragons. They're represented as dragons. There are people who have statues of life, for example, at Constance Demiurge God is born mortal. Yep, exactly. I'm gonna copy and paste that and steal that. Is that okay? I'm gonna put that in my... Don't mind that. Don't mind me. I'm gonna... That's a good explanation. Yeah, go for it. Okay, cool. So, essentially, for example, if someone has died, a lot of times at the funeral, there will be the dragon, the balance of death, a statue probably presenting them. A lot of churches have, or funeral homes have the death dragon as a statue. There are people who thrive for chaos or don't believe in order and then worship the chaos instead. And every single one of these balances make constants, essentially. They are the fundamentals of what makes something. And that's very slay. Moss, for example, not very religious. She does, for example, Pine, the Safe Travels one, she does occasionally stop by a temple to say things and then move on. But there are people who are priests, even, that represent a constant or balance. And maybe your loved one has become a constant in the future, maybe, after they pass. And that's, I guess, a nice way to think about it. Hydrate! Oh, thank you so much, I kinda needed that. Are you still live? Hello, yeah, I was talking about Moss lore. Oh, that water just fucking went hard. Ooh! That's some good water. Moss lore is good. Yippee! I love validation for my lore that I think about way too much. So, I talk about this a lot and that sort of stuff, and I want you guys to, in the future, have your own character and your own story in Cluster. I want you to be able to be cool and have your own story in the world. If you actually look to the left, beep, 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 beep. If you look up here, look, that's the map of Cluster. That's the map. Dude, I have like the currency and how it like converts and whatnot. Ooh, here's a neat thing that you might be interested in from Moss lore. A very common item are mimic bags. Mimics integrated into society over the last millennia. They have been tamed and or choose to work as sentient versions of everyday items to help/assist their owner. They get treated as familiars, companions, or pets. Yes! Mimic bags, like the name suggests, mimics that take on the form of various bags and store items inside of themselves. Depending on the size of the mimic and their property, they have different storage sizes and abilities. For example, oh, Curtis Manga, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome, welcome. Go, 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 go. Does Moss bring things from different places to other places? Yes! Moss constantly traveled from region to region to sell her wares. That's an entire big thing. For example, a ice mimic bag is commonly used by traveling chefs to store consumables in cold environments similar to a fridge. So they have various ways of working. Moss doesn't quite have a mimic bag, but they are funky. They can be little fridges that keep your meat cold. Mimics don't eat people. I see that in Dark Souls. True. However, look out for what you put in a mimic, as some mimics don't enjoy the taste of certain items. This is one of the downsides of mimic bags because of their tendency to reject specific items. Remember, these mimics have their own unique physique, personality, and taste. Their teeth act as a defensive mechanism to defend items from thieves and pickpocketers. That makes them especially popular with merchants and adventurers. So, if you have a mimic bag and you try to put in, I don't know, a very specific type of item, they might just be like, I ain't eating that shit, that's gross! I think it would be fun for different trinkets on the desk of each place visited. I should probably mention, the overlay of the wagon will probably change in the future, depending on the region that we're in. It will definitely reflect on the overlay. You guys will see how this place will change with me adventuring. And I know this is already like me being way too ambitious, but I plan on making merch releases special for each region. For example, train tickets. Train tickets? There's a train? Yes! Let me explain. Alright? There's a train! Choo-choo! I'm a big fan of trains, so I'm gonna show you the train. Of Cluster. Let me show you. I'm way too into this now. Let me find... Where is it? Let me pull up the map of Cluster. There you go. Now this might be weird at first, because train, that's not that exciting. Trust me, it is! It is! I love trains, it's exciting. This is the map of Cluster. This is the entirety of Cluster. This has, like, colored spaces. It's not actually like that. But this is Cluster. There are some points that are important to lore, such as... let me, for example, show you. Does it work? Yep. What's that purple there? I marked the different regions by color. So this entire centerpiece is Pineheart. And since Pineheart is the capital of Cluster, there is a train system called Basel Express. Basel has a reason why it's called that, and I'm gonna tell you later. But this is Pineheart. The Basel Express is a express that surrounds the entirety of Pineheart and then goes throughout the entirety of Cluster. Like a big, big spider web. The train system is like a spider web. Kind of like this. So with Pineheart being in the middle, Novalis is this green place over here. This is Glaze Canyons. This is Mao. And this entirety underground is Dewdrop Caves. Work in progress name. Which you enter through this place. Here. You enter there by going down a ginormous elevator. When I say the elevator is ginormous, I mean it's ginormous. Up here is Ambrosia. The reason why it's so weird is because the floating cities are hovering over it. There are cities like up here floating. But this is where Ambrosia would be. Longest elevator ride. Yeah, it kind of is. Imagine it more like a vertical ferry, you know? Instead of over the water, it goes into the water. I love your creativity. Thank you! That's a very, very gay compliment, and I like it, thank you. I will hydrate, thank you. There's some spots that are relevant to lore, but don't have a name, because they come in, like, late lore, which is this place, which is this place, this place. Yeah, primarily those three. They have some relevancy. And I mentioned the Basel Express, right? Basel, B-A-S-A-L. It has a special name because one of the things in Cluster is Basel crystals. Let me get up the explanation what Basel crystals are. I closed the page because I'm dumb. So, crystallized basalt. Crystallized basalt grows in the depths of the Dewdrop Caves. These crystals contain special elemental properties for which people have found use for. After they get harvested from the Dewdrop Caves, they're used in everyday items. Weapons, machines, lights, etc. Some people use them to help themselves cast specific magical elemental properties, and it's known that people even load weapons with some of them. Each basalt gets rated by its brilliance. The more brilliant they are, the stronger the potency of the crystal elemental property. There are 10 tiers, with 10 being the highest. High-tier crystallized basalt are more rare and are being used in factory machinery and strong elemental-based weapons. Lower brilliance basalt is more commonly used in everyday, for example, light bulbs. Electricity basalt crystals are being used in light bulbs. And I even have actually some at the wagon. If you see the lanterns behind me, they are powered by crystals. Lower brilliance crystal basalt are also more common and are the least expensive and least harmful variant, but last a lot less. Normally, those crystals grow naturally over centuries in their respective environments, but Novalis technology have found ways to grow artificial crystals. Truth to be told, however, nothing beats the real deal. When the basal potency depletes, the brilliance reduces and the crystal grows dull. This basal waste can get recycled and used to help the growth of new crystals. So essentially, they're magical batteries that can be used in very special ways. For example, Moss's wagon, her house, runs on a basal crystal generator. So it actually is not fully pushed by Moss. Moss just steers it. Lamps get powered by these crystals. And this train is powered by basal crystals. Primarily, the entirety of Cluster is going right now through the new age. What that means is they have gone past industrial energy and are now moving towards more nature-friendly, basal-based energy. Glace Canyons is one of the biggest cities that has like an industrial influence over the entirety of Cluster. And right now, because of the upcoming of Novalis, they are kind of not getting as much money as they used to because their energy source and their industrial areas are getting more and more outdated. And so that's something that they're struggling with right now, actually. And Novalis is thriving because they are like, yeah, reusable energy, yippee! And Glass Canyons is like, fuck, we build our entire city on non-reusable energy. We use metal and ores. The fuck? So, I think that's most of the things I can tell you about. I could tell you about, like, how one gets a new thread, etc., etc. Basal crystals is also a renewable thing or a depleting resource. They are a resource that can be depleted, however, they are recyclable, and thanks to Novalis finding out a way to make artificial ones, they have become a very dependable energy source when it comes to machinery specifically, I would say, and everyday items, such as lights. Because of the fact that they're like pretty much zero waste when they're broken up and recycled correctly, they would be a renewable source, yes. Yippee! But they come from the Dewdrop Caves, and the one big downside about the Dewdrop Caves is that they're very dangerous, and they're not explored. They're only, like, explored 5%. And people don't know exactly what is down there in those caves. And because of that, one of the biggest adventuring schools, the Constellation, it's called the Constellation, is down there, and you can get a special license to adventure deeper into the Dewdrop Caves because of that. You need to get a special adventuring license. A lot of adventurers try to get one because it allows you access to a lot more, and people tend to respect you more than a self-made one. And you will be assigned to follow our partnership with the Constellation. I'm throwing in new words again. Let me explain what the Constellation is. Bioluminescent caves or creepy creatures? What if I tell you it's a mix of both? It's bioluminescent. It's a very bioluminescent underground city, actually. But there are creepy creatures, as too. A lot of them. It's a mix. It's a mix. Since no light really gets down there, bioluminescence is their light source. But let me explain what the constellation is. The constellation is a school, an academy, where you can gain a special adventuring license. Entering the constellation, you will take a vow to be an adventurer for the public. You will use your powers for good and to help people in need when situations are dire. When you take the vow, you get tested first. You get tested for what kind of part in the constellation can you be. Hi, Sophia! You get tested. So there are different types of constellations. And you will be assigned to be a specific star in this constellation. There are different colors of stars. For example, the green team, the green stars, they are people who focus on health, life, and that sort of stuff. On healing people. So if you have, for example, a thread that allows you to heal people or use plant magic, and in that very specific direction, you will be assigned to the green team. Then there's a teacher of the green team that teaches you how to act in certain situations when there's problems in the public and what you can do as your specialty. They teach you how to use your thread in the most efficient way possible. And what this allows you to do is, let's say, for example, you graduated. Congratulations, you are a green thread. You are very good at healing people. That's great and all. Now let's say you're in public. Suddenly, there's a fire and an explosion. Panic arises, the public freaks out. You have taken a vow. You've taken a vow to use your power for good. In that moment, you look around, you know what your job is, and you get to work. You go to a person who is injured, you find them, you help them, and you're like, hi, I'm a constant, green team, whatever, I can help you. I am maybe not a person who works at a hospital, but I am qualified. And when people happen to be part of something called, the constellation, when people from the same academy find each other, so let's say there's the fire, you see multiple people talking to each other, being like, oh, I'm team green, oh, I'm team red, okay, we can figure this out. You immediately can be like, everyone knows their roles, we can work as a team even though we never fucking met. Because we know what our roles are and how we can work with each other because we've been trained to. So it's like an act of public service that you get vowed to help people without having to be like a policeman or someone who works at a hospital. And the constellation only arose after the elite actually broke up, because the elite used to be like that constellation. They used to be the people who kept other people safe. However, they split up. And because of that, people were like, well, who's gonna help us now? So a group of people came together and be like, let's form this school, let's form this academy so we can teach the general public how to use their thread. It's really cool and interesting to me. I'm glad. So every single person can be part of a constellation. So each ones are like training, attack, defense, healing, etc. Each positions know what they do. Exactly. And they're like, for example, trained. If you're a healing person, you don't only get taught how to heal. You'll learn how to self-defend. You will learn how to... Part of the course is how you learn how to act with certain other members of the team. For example, you are a healing person, green team, and you meet someone on your travels, something happens, and they happen to be red team. I don't know, red in this case can be like fighter. They're fighting They're really good at fighting and beating people up. Or they're very physically strong. Let's say that. They're very physically strong. They're red team. So you can be like, hey, you're red team. I learned that when I meet another red team member, they can do a lot of the physical work for me so I can help others better. Etc, etc. So each of them is individually trained on their thread and skill set. Yes. Moss has attended that Constellation Academy for her license, and it's actually required for some guilds. If you, for example, want to join a guild, the one Moss is part of is the Merchant Guild. It is required to be part of the Constellation. The Merchants Guild, where she's part from, she had to do Constellation work. But Moss is a yellow star, which is essentially, yellow star is leadership. That is their entire thing. It is being able to talk and act and making decisions quickly. It may not be anything attacking or physical, but it's handling the social aspect of any dire situation. For example, fire. Green person is healing, red person is helping people get out of the building. Yellow team, where Moss is part of, they're the ones that go around and say, okay, families, go to the left, you guys connect there, you need to go there, you need to go there, look after each other, this is how everything works. They're part and the reason how order gets brought in. They bring order in this situation. That's what Moss has been taught. She learned how to diffuse situations and talk. That's her entire thing. That's a Team Yellow. That's a yellow star. You can still have, like, super powerful powers and be a yellow star. It's just, depending on how you use your thread, you're just better at something else. Is there a social bias against ones that those have no threads or magic? Yeah. So, there's two instances of having no magic or no thread. One is a comet child. Those die very early on. Because of that, they're often seen as these poor people, these poor children. May their lives be peaceful. But also, when a comet child bursts and their wild magic goes crazy, normally they appear as flames. And because of that, they are considered also a danger to people. And because of that, a lot of people are like, I wouldn't look after a comet child because they're dangerous if they suddenly start to burst into flames. But there's also the snap people, which are the ones that accidentally broke their thread during a threading, for example, or something else, and because of that they don't have the thread anymore. They're more like treated like, wow, how the fuck did that happen? Because if it's a medical situation, then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. But if it's like just to get magic, there are some people who do say like, why can't you just be happy with the one thread you have? And there's some people who go, oh, that's unfortunate, I'm sorry you had to go through that. And there's some people who go, hey, I can hook you up with someone. There's always a hint of feeling sorry. But there's also people who say threads are not necessary to live. They don't make you who you are. There are mothers and parents and families out there who don't use their magic very often. They live like normal people out there. And this entire, like, city is not... The entirety of Cluster is not dependent on using entire time magic. They can live very peacefully, just many people decide to become good at the magic that they use. There are normal schools, but there are also magic schools. You know? You can be a commoner, no one will hold it against you. But there are egotistical bastards, and I'm not gonna say or call out a future character that is gonna appear, but there are egotistical bastards that think If you have more threads, you're superior. It's like, people are human. They have feelings and concepts and ideals of how things should go. And everyone has a different idea of how one should live their life. And it's dangerous. And that causes people to dislike each other. What happens when you have too many threads? There are a few symptoms that come with having too many threads. One is you cannot cast the magic that you just attached. For example, you have a lot of threads, but the magic cannot be equally distributed because you're just not that strong enough yet. Your core thread is not strong enough to pulsate the magic throughout all of the threads, so the ones that are just freshly new added at the end, they don't get as much magic. For example, let me show you. Let's say you have one thread. This is your core thread. This is your core thread. This is the one you were born with. And now you get another thread. And another thread. Oh, add? Okay. I'm waiting for the ad to disappear. 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 Hey, welcome back. So this is your core thread, right? And the magic normally pulls us through like this, right? But this will make the hierarchy appear. Meaning, if this is like your magic, right? It'll appear like this instead. Until the magic cannot flow through anymore. So the more threads you have, the weaker it gets. Because it has to travel through the entire. And your core thread can get stronger. It can. So this could maybe like be this strong before it dissipates. But you need to train your core thread before you get any other ones, because or else the magic won't distribute evenly. So that's like one of the things that happen. Another one is probably exhaustion. Having to pump out that much magic the entire time. You know, magic doesn't just get activated, magic constantly flows through you. That's why, like, comet children die so early, and not just because when they use the magic. It's because magic constantly flows throughout your body. Having to travel that much magic through your body will exhaust you. You make you tired and sluggish, and because of that, sick. So get new threads under chances that you might not be strong enough. But yeah. How do you train your threads? Spiritual training, practice, general practice of your own magic. It is like a muscle. You strain and train your thread to make it or allow it to become bigger and stronger. Treat it like muscles. There has been artificial weaving of artificially making your thread stronger, but that is like not being used by the public at all. That's just an experiment that Novalis is trying right now. I could tell you, dude, I have like an entire description of how like the threading process works. I like talking about this stuff. It's very fun. I have the description of an item that can destroy a thread, and that is illegal. It's very fun. It's very fun. I can tell you how it works. Let me draw something up right now, real quick. Let me... So, the thing I just drew up is a necto machine. Now I'm going to draw a person on it. This is how you sit on the necto machine. You sit... Is that what messes with the threads? Yes, this is the artificial threading, or how not artificial, the surgical way of threading. So, this is you. You are sitting in this machine. Your thread just has been pulled out and it's hanging anti-gravity because it is just kind of floats there from your neck. Me, yeah! This is your thread. This is your magical thread. It has been pulled out and is now floating there. Now, the machine has a little arm that grabs the thread taut. And then there is another arm on the machine that has a needle, a very specific needle. Now, let me read out the description of the necto machine. This machine allows one user to thread a new thread onto each other. It is powered by your Tier 7 Brilliance Energy Electrocrystal. This works by entering a manually written code and threading pattern into the machine and letting it operate on the patient. These machines are only allowed to be used by authorized personnel in the Novalis labs. The machine looks like a leather-padded operation chair with large opening arms in the back, similar to spider legs. Each of these arms have necto needles and tiny clamps to pull the threads and infuse them together with various other tools. The patient sits in the chair and leans forward with no upper clothes onto a padded lean for the upper body. The arms sit relaxed next to the person on the armrests. The face sticks through a padded hole similar to a massage table. First, the patient's thread gets slowly extracted on one end by a spell that the operator supervisor casts. The thread then gets manually attached by one of the clamps. After the thread has been secured, the threading pattern and the new thread get inserted into the necto needle. Everything gets checked one last time before the operation starts. During the entire threading process, the supervisor can manually stop the machine if needed and even take control of the movement. So far, the machine has only been used in by Novalis authorized personnel in a Novalis Labs facility. The inventor, Mana Poseles, takes full responsibility for each operation and has to approve a procedure before the machine gets into operation. The machine works as a precise movement executor. The nectar needle that is being used actually threads the threads together. Real quickly, Mana Poseles is the elite of Novalis. She is light that is sentient instead of a robot body. She's very cool. Do you have this lore anywhere else I can follow? I only have it on like a private document. I'm probably gonna write. I'm gonna probably work on a website where you can like read up on this. Definitely. And now for the nectar needle, because that's the thing that's actually making the magic happen. A nectar needle is the tool being used for the threading procedure. The tool has been used long before nectar machines was created to add new threads to oneself. The needle is forged out of obsidian and receives an enchantment to let it interact with the threads. Like a normal sewing needle, it can be used by hand to stitch and attach the threads in various ways. Depending on how the thread was attached, the thread gives the host various different abilities. Over the centuries, people have developed different styles of threading with the nectar needle. People all over Cluster travel to specific craftsmen to let themselves get a new thread stitched depending on the desired ability. The nectar needle allows for various stitching styles and full control over the thread. One must study the art of the nectar needle, or the possibility of knotting or snapping the thread becomes quite high. So the needle is just magical and people do it by hand. Imagine it like a tattoo studio but with magic. I think I said that before. But yeah, that's the machine. Moss has been on one of those. It did not go well. Smiles. But yeah. That's my lore. I love my lore. I love my lore. But yeah, love magic. Skull tree! Yippee! So, what you guys think? I'm very cringe about it. I talked just now a lot and I didn't draw. So you said you'd like us to make character in the world. Is there anything that is off the table or rules that not particularly allowed? Also, it's very fun and cool. Thank you. I do have like a few rules, but honestly, I want you guys to have fun. So rule number one. Rule number one, turn down the music. Rule number one, you cannot be a balance. Balance are very specific characters that I've created and have their own story and role already. So it doesn't quite work. Your characters that are created supposed to live in the world of the mortals. However, you're allowed to create your own constant. That's very interesting. It's not canon, but like, fuck, having constants, that's cool. If you like want to have a very specific concept. One of the other rules I have is you can't create a character that is a lead member because, again, there are already lead members that are very specific and play a specific role. I guess that's it. I mean, there's like characters, for example, the Queen's Aqua, right? The oasis that is in Glaze Canyons, it has a leader. I guess you can't be the leader from the oasis, but you can be like, honestly, I want you to just have fun. I would love to like listen what you guys like create and what your role is. For example, you could be like a teacher at the constellation. Or you could be like an ex-teacher. Or, for example, something I haven't mentioned before, you could be from the black market of the Dewdrop Caves. There's a black market. There's a lot of sketchy evil people there. You could be a assassin from that place that gets hired. I would love to make a character for this world. It's so fucking cool. Ah! It makes me so happy! Oh, I'm sorry, that makes me so happy. Knowing that people actually find this cool, even though I'm just talking and talking the entire time. You know what? You know what? I'm going to download this VOD. And I'm going to upload on YouTube this entire conversation we just had. So if you ever want to listen back to it, you can. I think that's a cool idea. But yeah, it's one of the nicest things to hear that people like my lore and maybe even want to create their own character, because that's my whole intention. That's my entire intention. I want to, in the future, do a giveaway. I want to do a competition, for example, of a prize money and the challenge of create your own cluster OC or create your own character in Dewdrop Caves. And for those I give them a prize money. Weirdly enough, I hooked on the concept of your wagon, like the lower one. Can you say that in chat? Dewdrop Caves? Dewdrop Caves. Don't worry, that is actually one of the only regions that I'm gonna change the name of. The name actually in concept for it is... let me find the name that I'm maybe considering changing to. Farron? I'd love to create monsters for it. Yeah, absolutely! Dude, hell yeah. Wait, the goal is to sketch your character in Dewdrop Caves? No, it's not actually right now. It's just something I want to do in the future, like a giveaway, to like a little challenge. Maxwell, if you like Moss lore, we just had an entire conversation about it, going like very deep into it. And I'm gonna edit this into a video and post it on YouTube. Because I want this to be preserved. I was so busy, sadly. Yeah, it's gonna be on YouTube. I'm gonna do that today. So, it's gonna be very rambly and VOD-like, but I just think the entire concept is fun. I would love to participate. Yeah! I'd love that. That would make me super happy. I want to see people's characters so badly! I want to see what people make character-wise. And the thing is, Moss is a traveling witch and goat. If you live in a region, you will probably find her there too. I am a NPC for you. I am just another person in cluster. I am not the main character. You are the main character, and I'm just happen to be one of the people you can buy shit from. I specialize in creature design. I already have 98 OCs. Holy shit. Oh my god. That's incredible. Oh man. I love my lore. I'm so gay about my lore. I'm happy when I get to talk about it. It's my ADHD. It's my stupid little hyperfixation. I drew him big moss, and I think small creatures would be fun. Yeah! Boss, dude. Boss. Boss is a fetch quest in Cluster, unironically. Boss's entire story is that Boss got created by cloning moss, but potato chips got into the mixture. So 100 bosses were created, every single boss is different, and they ran away, besides that one boss that looks like Moss. And now you can find bosses randomly in, like, places. So maybe you're going about on your day and then you see, like... So that explains why Boss loves potato chips? Yeah! But essentially, for example, if you're, like, in Glaze Canyons, you might see, like, a beach boss. And you're like, oh, it's one of those guys again. They're like their own little species. They're very fun. And very helpful if you're nice to them. I can also, like, if you have, like, a question about, like, specific regions, I can answer some questions about how they, like, operate. I'm gonna write all the names of the regions into chat, 1 second. Of the main regions, at least. Glazed Canyons. Dewdrop Caves. Farron. I think I'm gonna change to Farron. No. There you go. Those are all... Oh, that's horrible, like... Let me redo that, actually. Let me put some comments into them so they're separated. So these are all the different regions. If you have any questions of, like, culture stuff or something, you can ask there. You know now what they're called. Also, for the cave concept, would it be along lines of deep-sea bioluminescence or normal deep-sea creatures? It can be a mix. But the main inspiration is deep-sea, ocean. But it doesn't mean they have to be fish. They can be... I imagine them being, like, moist. At the minimum. Scaly a lot of the times. Less feathery. There can be feathered creatures like dinosaur-like ones. But specific deep sea is the aesthetic. It's like bioluminescent, ancient, discovered, but horrifying Atlantis kind of deal, you know? There are people in the Dewdrop Caves that actually get born with bioluminescent aspects because of just how the environment there works. So there are people who have, for example, bioluminescent hair. They are more adjusted to not being in natural sunlight. For example, the elite for Glaze Canyons originally came from the Dewdrop Caves. He's a sort of vampire guy. But because of his skill set, he moved and now looks after Glaze Canyons, even though he can't really be in the sun. I could draw some cave spiders, whip scorpions, fish-inspired creatures, anglers. Yeah, the possibilities endless indeed. Dude, anglers specifically, I can see like an angler type of creature that has like a basalt crystal as his lamp or as his bait. Because maybe like there are geologists that try to get it and then they get lured because of it. Of how the brilliance and shiny it is. I can totally see that. I can show you here. So technically my Moss Petrichor Pinterest is open to the public, but I don't really share it around because it is kind of spoilery for a lot of things. But this is the Dewdrop Caves place, so or Fenrir. Farron. It's called Farron now. Congratulations, you're called Farron now. We're not gonna call you Glaze Canyons. I gotta learn how to say this. Farron Caves. Farron. I'm gonna edit this here too. So I pound it into my head. Farron. There you go. This is like my idea and concept of this place. I'm gonna zoom real quick, close in, and I'm gonna just let it scroll. It's like underground, multi-layered, rocky place. Kono Chai, welcome to the Wagon Traveler. It's me, Moss, your traveling merchant goat. I stream, I scream, and I make art. I'm showing off one of my lore places that exist, which is Farron. Used to be called Dewdrop Caves. It's very cool. I imagine it being very, like, ancient and ruined, so it's not just like, oh, it's blue and shiny. There's also, like, magma and, like, fiery stuff and elementals playing by their own rules. I wish I had a good place to show my art, but I haven't uploaded anything. Prehistoric? Yeah, prehistoric. But, like, not just prehistoric, but also, like, advanced. It's like there's magic and history and technology and languages that have been hidden away thousands of years ago and that are just being rediscovered, and they're so much more almost alien-like. Almost. But not quite. It's like people have been there before, but genuinely no one knows where a lot of this stuff originated from. But yeah, this is like the general idea. I can show you the logos again. Like, these are the logos. So Pine Art does have a logo, but it doesn't show it here. There's Glaze Canyons, which is the second one. I'm gonna rework that one. That is fucking ugly. 3 is Novalis. I'm really happy with that one. 4 is Meow. It's kind of silly, but the people are silly. And also Mao is, I say it's a region, but it's more like a small village that is relevant to the lore. There's 5, which is the... There's a motorcycle outside. 5 is Farron, or Dewdrop Caves, and 6 is Ambrosia. So yeah, this is kind of how I imagine the city to be like. To be like, bioluminescent crystals have been used to light up the place, and people use the stone and resources that they get to build fantastic, pretty houses. Wait. Like, let me think. Let me think real quick. Is this what I'm considering? Maybe. Not quite. I thought I meant like Peru, but algae and bacteria that are bioluminescent? Yeah, absolutely. Glowing crystals. It's weirdly elegant for being a underground city. That is like the thing. It feels noble and magical, even though it's like the people who live there just slowly turning into the best that they can be. It slaps. It goes hard. Banger.